How's it going, everyone? Thank you for listening to this tutorial. So I've been working on this Cthulhu Sleeps remake for about the past week, and it's not quite up to the standard I would like to post it, but I got fairly close, and I may come back to it in a few months. But I wanted to play for you just this little section I have, and see if we can't recreate the wub sound, which I got fairly close on. At least I got the technical aspects of it right. It's just little tweaks that maybe you can do on your own to fix it. So this is what it sounds like. It looks like my computer is overloading a little bit there. But that's pretty much the basics of the sound. So since it's probably the most complex sound I've ever tried to recreate, it's just very touchy, and any very slight change to any of the parameters can just completely ruin it. So I'm going to give you kind of the basics of how I got there, and then maybe we can perfect it in the future. So I'm going to open up Serum, and we're going to start loading up these oscillators. This oscillator A will be at octave 0. We're going to bring it to the analog basic shapes saw wave. Oscillator B is this saw wave. I guess they're the same thing, but this is just how I arrived at the sound. So oscillator B is going to be up 7 semitones, which is a perfect fifth. And we're going to bring up the detune to 14. And the detune amount at 0.12. We're going to open up this noise oscillator, bring it to analog pink, pitch at around 61%. And the levels are going to be all the way down for these because we're going to be modulating them. Filter, we're going to use the PP, the multi-peak filter. Make sure all of our oscillators are going into the filter. Bring the cutoff down to 40 hertz. The resonance up to 53%. The drive to 17%. And the frequency variance to 18%. And then we're going to use this LFO1 to modulate everything. So I created this little shape after many hours of trying to figure this out. You can pause and then just recreate it. We're going to set it to BPM and make this 4.3. And that's an eighth note, I believe. And the way I figured that out was I just went to an online BPM to millisecond calculator, found out what an eighth note was at 128 BPM, then took that number into a hertz to millisecond calculator and figured out what the hertz number was that correlated with that eighth note. So we're going to start applying this. The noise oscillator is going to go up to 96. The oscillator A, 100%. And oscillator B is going to be 32. We're going to bring it up to this cutoff on the peak filter. We're going to make that 29. Come on. And then bring it onto the filter, or the frequency variance, to 39. So that kind of gives us this sound. And this is a G note hitting 192. Okay. So from there, we're going to open up the FX initialize the hyperdimension, mix all the way down here, size all the way down. And this is going to be, I believe, 1 or 2%. Actually, I think it was around 5. And then we're going to use a band pass filter, the band 12, bring the cutoff down to 32 hertz, the resonance to 15%, and the drive to 21%. And we're going to use this LFO to modulate the cutoff of this to 45 and the frequency to 48. So we get this now. So pretty much the entire sound is, it's saw waves being filtered with these weird resonances into another bandpass filter to kind of swoop it up in frequency range. But the key to the sound is the distortion, which is just very hard to dial in perfectly. So I use the X shaper, and I believe, I just want to see if I did any filtering. Yeah, I did pre there. And it was set to another bandpass. You want this little Q to be 0.1 and the frequency to be at 104. And we're also going to be modulating this amount with the LFO. Just want to see where I put that to. So that's LFO 1 to this. 57 up there. Just want to see if it's both ways or not. Yeah, both ways. So we want to shift alt this so it's going both ways. 57. So we get this now. There's no distortion coming in yet. We also want to modulate on the drive to 55. Push the drive down first. And onto the mix 100%. Now this is the hard part, dialing in the distortion, but you want to get this washed out sound. Like, you want the distortion to smear the frequency so it's not very resonant or nasally. It's more just kind of like crushed, washed out, kind of like a white noise effect. So that's a little too noisy. And I found these like vertical lines kind of give it that washed out effect. Whereas this is a little more like resonant-y, nasally. And I will show you where I arrived at for the actual patch, just in case you want to just copy this down exactly. So that's the A edit. Here's the B. I guess I didn't do anything on B for this one. So the next thing we need is some OTT, because that's what gives it like this suctiony, squelchy kind of character. You hear how it's like catching the high end now. And I also put the LFO1 on the high bands. So that's pretty much the patch. I will show you the settings I had for that multiband on the real one. And that LFO that's modulating that high bands was up to 36 one way, and I had pulled this high band down. You can drag these left or right. And then from there, it's just EQ, matching the EQ from the reference. I did a bunch of crazy EQ to try to make this correct. You'll have to try that out yourself, just referencing each band from the reference. There's just an absurd amount of EQ, way too much. I know deadmau5 didn't do it like this, but I was unable to get it close enough without a bunch of weird EQ. And that's pretty much it. All you have to do after that, maybe a little bit more OTT on the actual patch just to get it a little more squelchy. And then from there, you can modulate the rates with this rate knob on the LFO. And that's pretty much the patch. So I hope you can gather something from that. Hopefully you can perfect it from there. I just thought I've never seen any tutorials up there on how to create this sound. And it's the most complex sound I've ever tried to make. So I hope that was helpful. And I hope you can perfect it a little bit and then share it with me, because that would be awesome. So this is it again, finally. So thank you for listening, and I will see you back for the next tutorial.